Good afternoon, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. So welcome to our existing investors and those of you who may be hearing about Arecor for the first time. So I'm just going to share my screen. Perfect. So my name's Dr. Sarah Howell. I'm the CEO of Arecor Therapeutics, and I'm joined today by Susan Lowther, our CFO. And today we'll really give you some background around Arecor, our vision really, and how we see the growth of the company moving forward, and really some of the key upcoming milestones that we have throughout 2023. So just by way of background at Arecor, we're very much focused on transforming patient care by enhancing existing therapeutic medicines so that we can bring safer, more effective and easy to use treatments to patients. We do this by leveraging our innovative and proprietary formulation technology platform that we call Arestat to enhance the performance of those existing therapeutic medicines, and very much focused on improving performance and patient outcomes. Of course, as a technology platform company, intellectual property is key to us, and we have very broad and robust IP protection of both the Arestat technology platform itself and also the enhanced versions of therapeutic medicines that we develop using the technology platform. We are a clinical stage company. We have 2 lead diabetes products. They're both insulin-based products in the clinic currently, and we've conducted 3 clinical studies across those 2 products, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail. And we very recently initiated a 4th clinical study there. And again, we're very much looking here at developing much faster acting insulins that can help people with diabetes better manage their blood glucose. And I'll talk about why that's important. We also have an in-house portfolio of proprietary products in the specialty hospital care segment, and this is where we're taking again existing medicines that are used in the hospital setting that are powders that require quite a complex mixing procedure prior to use at point of care, and we're developing stable liquid ready to use and ready to administer versions of these products. And our strategy here is essentially to develop these products closer to market, demonstrating their superiority against the treatments available today. And then we'd be looking to enter into value-driving partnerships with pharmaceutical companies to bring those to market. Now, on partnerships, we do partner with leading pharmaceutical and biotech companies. This is where we take their proprietary products in-house that may be in development already on the market, and we use the Arestat technology to develop enhanced versions of their products for them. This is a revenue-generating part of the business. Our partners pay Arecor to apply our Arestat technology and our expertise to develop these enhanced versions of their products which would be otherwise unachievable. And also, when we've completed these programs and developed a version of their product that meets this enhanced target product profile, they have the option of whether to take those further forward into development and to the market under a technology licensing model. And these tend to be milestone and royalty bearing, so offer significant upside potential to the company. So we're very much a commercially focused business. We have existing revenue generating partnerships. We have significant potential upside and returns from licensing, which tend to be milestone and royalty based. Because we're enhancing existing therapeutic medicines, this is de-risked product development there, doesn't carry the same risk as novel therapeutics. And back in August of last year, we also acquired a company called Tetris Pharmaceuticals, and with that acquired a sales, marketing and distribution platform and commercial products there. And that really gives us optionality there to roll out some of our products across the UK and Europe, as well as that opportunity to build revenues through the commercial products that they have within their pipeline. And our vision here overall essentially is to build a significant self-sustaining biopharmaceutical company. So I'll just talk a little bit around the Arestat technology. So as I've mentioned here, we're taking products that are suboptimal in some way, and we're able to apply the Arestat technology to develop enhanced versions of these. And on this slide, it's just some of the examples of what we can achieve with the technology. So we can use Arestat to enhance the therapeutic kinetics. So this essentially means we can enhance and improve how that medicine works post-injection. And our insulins are a very good example of this, where we've accelerated that absorption of insulin to help people better manage their blood glucose. We're able to take products out of the cold chain, so to develop heat-stable versions of these, which obviously simplifies then the distribution and storage of those products without that need for cold chain storage. Also, the focus of our specialty hospital care and many of our partnerships with pharmaceutical companies is taking these products that are powders and require this complex reconstitution or mixing procedure and developing these stable, liquid, ready to use and ready to administer products. And this really allows safe, fast and effective use at point of care. We also work quite extensively in looking at how do we simplify care for patients. And one of these areas is a drive towards taking them out of the hospital setting here. And an area that Arecor can bring value to the table here is to take products that are currently administered via a long intravenous infusion in the hospital settings, there's many oncology products, for example, and develop highly concentrated, stable liquid versions that can be administered via a single injection. And in some cases, this allows for self-administration in the home setting. So we have a very broad range of products that we can use and we can apply the technology through, always focused on how does this bring improvements and simplify and improve treatment care and options for patients. So if we now look at our portfolio here, so we have a combination of Arecor in-house proprietary products, which are shown in the dark blue here, and also our partner programs in the orange. So if we start with our in-house proprietary programs here, what's really important to note is because we're taking existing medicines that are already on the market, it means the safety and effectiveness of these therapeutic medicines is known. And that's important because it means that we can follow abbreviated regulatory and development pathways to market, so we can develop these products much faster and at a lower cost and a lower risk compared to a novel therapeutic product. So for our diabetes products, for example, AT247 and AT278, the clinical studies that we're performing are to not to prove safety. We know these products are safe. It's to demonstrate that we have superior profiles, that they are faster acting insulins, and that they do indeed improve outcomes for patients. And our strategy here, as I mentioned earlier, is to take these and develop these closer to market, conduct the clinical studies to demonstrate their superiority against gold standard insulins, and then we would look to partner these with a major pharmaceutical company to be able to bring them to market. And with our partner, we'd be looking to take market share within that existing greater than $6 billion market. And then if we go to our partner programs, I'll draw your attention to a couple of products. The first being AT220. So this again is where we've applied the Arestat technology to our partner's product, and then they further develop these and bring them to market under a milestone and royalty bearing license agreements. I draw your attention to this product because we anticipate this will be the first product to be launched on the market, incorporating the Arestat technology. We're expecting this product to be launched by our partner within 2023, and this is under a royalty-bearing agreement to Arecor. So that's important both in validating that the technology can be approved by the major regulators, but also will start to generate recurring royalty revenue for Arecor. And then if we go to AT307, this is one of our specialty hospital products that started its life in-house at Arecor. So it was a proprietary product that we selected, and we've now partnered this product with Hikma Pharmaceuticals under a license agreement. And you may have seen that earlier this year in January, we entered into the next phase of the development of this product. So this generated a milestone and revenue related to that milestone with Hikma. But importantly, this product has now been fully transferred to Hikma, and they're fully responsible now for the further development and commercialization of this product. And again, this is under a milestone and royalty bearing license agreement. So just talking a little bit more around partnerships here, we have a growing portfolio of partnerships with partners. Many of them we cannot name, unfortunately. The names you see here, Eli Lilly, obviously a global pharmaceutical player, and Par and Intas are partners that are happy for us to refer to them. But we've entered it into 8 new collaborations since the IPO. So these are pre-licensed collaborations where we're working with our partner to apply our technology and have this significant upside and potential if they decide to take those further forward into development and ultimately to the market. And here really is key is that Arecor does build deep relationships with our pharmaceutical partners, and we do value driving deals with those partners, which validates the technology itself and obviously offer us that upside potential from licensing. And as I mentioned, we had the transfer earlier this year to Hikma of 8307, so that's a ready-to-use medicine that's been developed with the Arestat technology. And we also were able to announce last month in February that we'd signed an additional formulation development agreement with a top 5 global pharmaceutical partner. So if we just move on to the diabetes and our insulin products, I think we all know that diabetes has reached pandemic levels worldwide now. There are around 537 million people living with diabetes. And despite the improvements in treatment options and care for these people with diabetes, there's still a need for improved treatments. And there's still a need in particular for improved insulins. And this is an area that Arecor is able to apply our technology to develop improved treatment options. And really here, we're very much focused on developing improved mealtime insulins. And the reason for this is for a person with diabetes, their daily challenge essentially is to manage their blood glucose and try and keep their blood glucose inside a healthy target range. And they can do this through most of the day and night, but the real difficulty becomes around meal times, because when we eat a meal, our blood glucose rises very rapidly. And it's fact that the best-in-class gold standard insulins that are available to these patients today are still not fast enough to counteract that very swift rise in blood glucose around meal times and bring it back into that healthy target range quickly. And as a result of this, on average, a person with diabetes spends around 25% of their time with their blood glucose too high in hyperglycemia, and about 5% of their time with their blood glucose too low in hypoglycemia. And it's this time spent out of that healthy target blood glucose range which essentially leads to the very serious disease complications associated with diabetes, so cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, issues with eyesight, which can lead to loss of sight. And actually, Diabetes UK recently put out some updated figures where they stated that every hour in the UK there's an amputation due to diabetes. And this is a direct result of being outside of that healthy target range. So at Arecor, we're developing very rapid acting, very highly concentrated rapid acting to help people with diabetes, both type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, to stay inside that healthy target range for longer to improve their outcomes. So if we first talk about one of our candidate insulin products, AT247, this is an ultra rapid acting insulin product. And what we're looking to target with AT247 is the fastest acting insulin, which will enable what's called a transformational fully closed loop artificial pancreas system. And I'll explain what that is now. So essentially, this is a system and technology where the individual with diabetes will wear a continuous blood glucose monitor, which measures their blood glucose at any point in time, 24/7. This reading is fed to a control algorithm, which based on that blood glucose reading will calculate how much insulin that individual needs to keep their blood glucose inside that healthy target range, which is then administered automatically via an insulin pump. Now, these systems are available to patients today. All this technology is available and patients do use these, but they're called an hybrid closed loop artificial pancreas system. And the reason that they're hybrid closed loop is this issue around meal times, that when that blood glucose rises very rapidly, that those gold standard insulins today are still not fast enough acting to bring it down into that healthy range quickly enough. And as a result of this, the patient must instruct the system to provide them with a large bolus dose, so a single large dose of insulin, to compensate for the fact that the insulin can't keep up with that swift rise in blood glucose. So with AT247 and its best-in-class profile, which I'll show you in a moment, we really have the potential here to enable this fully closed-loop artificial pancreas, which would be life-changing with people with diabetes, particularly type 1 diabetes, where tight control is absolutely critical for outcomes. So I'll just very briefly show you the clinical data that we have to date. We've conducted 2 clinical studies successfully for AT247. So the first that I'm showing you here was our first-in-man clinical study. It's a phase 1 study. And what you're seeing here at the top is the pharmacokinetic data. So this is essentially showing us post-injection how much insulin we've got on board and how quickly we've got that on board. And AT247 is in the green. And if I talk just about this compared to Fiasp, because this is the fastest acting gold standard insulin that we compared AT247 to, and this is a product from Novo Nordisk. And what you can clearly see here from this graph is that we very much see a shift to the left in the green for AT247. So this means we've accelerated the absorption post-injection. So we've got insulin on board faster and more insulin on board much more quickly, particularly in that first 2 hours post-injection, which is this critical time after you've eaten a meal and your blood glucose has risen very rapidly. And in the bottom here, what you're looking at is the pharmacodynamic data. So this is essentially the glucose lowering effect. And again, as a result, we saw this faster onset of insulin action. We got more insulin on board more quickly, and this translated into a much greater glucose lowering effect compared to those gold standard insulins that are available to patients today. So this was very encouraging data for us. And then at the back end of 2022, so last year, we were able to report data, headline data from our second clinical study. And this time we wanted to study AT247 when delivered over a 3-day period by insulin pump. So we're starting to move towards our intended patient population. So this was in type 1 diabetics, but also that intended mode of delivery via insulin pump. And again, this was a very successful study. We saw from the data that we again demonstrated we had accelerated the insulin absorption post-injection, so we got insulin on board faster, and we saw more insulin on board more quickly compared to those gold standard insulins, Novolog. And Novolog is the same as NovoRapid. It's the US name because this was a study that we conducted in the US, and Fiasp, which is Novo Nordisk's ultra-rapid acting insulin. And again, this translated to a significantly superior glucose lowering effect. So this is a PD data compared to Novolog, and very similar pharmacodynamic profile. So that's glucose lowering effect compared to Fiasp. Now, I'm not showing you the full data today, unfortunately, because we'll be looking to target a major diabetes conference later this year where we'll be presenting the full results. But overall, what these 2 studies demonstrate to us is that AT247 has a very real potential to be able to be the fastest acting insulin that can finally enable this fully closed loop artificial pancreas system. So we're very excited about that potential. So moving on to our second insulin-based product. So this is AT278. Again, we've taken existing insulin here. And in this case, we've developed a very highly concentrated but rapid acting insulin. And the reason for this is that we're seeing a growing number of people with diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetics, who are requiring higher daily doses of insulin. So this really goes hand in hand with the obesity pandemic as well. We tend to find as BMI rises of those people with diabetes, their doses of insulin also rise. And also it's a result of insulin resistance as the disease progresses. So we have around 35% of type 2 diabetics on insulin in the United States now, require more than 100 units a day, and it's about 18% of type 1s. And we're seeing a year-on-year growth in that need within that patient population. And there are currently no concentrated, very rapid acting insulins available to these patients. So they have 2 options essentially: They can use one of the gold standard rapid-acting or ultra-rapid-acting insulins that are available, so such as Novolog and Fias that we've just spoken about. And this will give them good blood glucose control. However, it will mean that they will need to deliver their daily insulin doses via high injection volumes and often multiple injections multiple times a day, because these products are only available at up to 200 units per mil. Or they can use the only other concentrated, very concentrated insulin on the market. So this is available at 500 units per mil, the same concentration as AT278. But this insulin has an intermediate acting profile, so it's a slower acting. So here the patients will get the benefits of lower injection volumes, fewer injections a day. However, they'll be compromising on their blood glucose control. And the second need for a very concentrated rapid-acting insulin is we're very much seeing that drive towards simplifying and improving glycemic control for patients, so blood glucose control. And one of the key elements here is around the miniaturization of those insulin pumps and those devices there, and being able to wear them for longer periods of time. So it reduces the burden of the disease. And to have a smaller, longer wear device, you need to be able to get more insulin on board in a smaller volume. So concentrated rapid-acting insulins are critical for this next, and to disrupt this market in this next generation of devices. And the challenge here essentially is that as you concentrate up insulin to make it more concentrated, it becomes slower acting. And we know we need these faster acting insulin for that improved blood glucose control. And it's this challenge that we've been able to overcome with the Arestat technology here. And just to give you a sense of some of the market opportunity here as well, what we're seeing with the concentrated insulin market, so these are insulins at 200 units and above, so it's the 200 unit per mil and 500 unit per mil. There is very much demand for these insulins, so it's currently around an $800 to $1 billion existing market today. And as I've just spoken about for AT278, we very much see this as the primary initial target patient population and market, because AT278 brings the best of both worlds here for these patients, that reduced injection volume and fewer injections a day, but with its very rapid acting profile, there's no compromise here on glycemic control. As I mentioned, we're seeing those increase in patients needing more than 100 units a day. And this is also translating over to a year-on-year increase in the number of prescriptions for these more concentrated insulin. So there's very much a demand here from patients, but only suboptimal insulins really available for them today. And then for those patients that are using currently lower concentration, rapid-acting insulins and ultra-rapid-acting insulins, this is about $5.4 billion of that existing market. Again, we very much see an opportunity here to enable that next generation, disrupt the market, enable that next generation of miniaturized pumps, a longer wear insulin pumps. And really, at the moment, AT278 is the only insulin that's in development currently, and with clinical data that demonstrates that you can meet this more highly concentrated, rapid-acting profile. So we very much have a market leadership position here. Now, in terms of clinical data, we've conducted one first phase 1 clinical study, which we reported last year for AT278. So we were comparing, again, these pharmacokinetics, so the absorption of insulin and how much insulin we're getting on board, and the pharmacodynamic profile. So this is the glucose lowering effect of our 500 unit per mil insulin, so that's AT278, compared to a rapid-acting insulin, Nova Rapid from Novo Nordisk, which is only available as 100 units per mil. And despite this 5-fold increase in concentration, we're able to demonstrate that AT278 had an equivalent PK/PD profile to Nova Rapid, and in fact it hit the high end of our expectations here, because it showed superiority in both the how much insulin we got on board and the glucose lowering effect for the first 60 minutes post injection here. And this data has been recently published in Diabetes Care, which is, as we say here, the highest ranked peer-reviewed journal in the field of treatment of diabetes and prevention, which shows you really the criticality and the interest in these results as well. And now we have just initiated in January of this year a second clinical study for AT278, and we'll expect to be reporting out on these results in Q4 of this year. And this study is important because we'll be comparing AT278 with Nova Rapid, so that's 100 unit per mil rapid-acting insulin, but also Humulin R U500, so the only other highly concentrated insulin, which has this intermediate-acting profile. So really, we'll be comparing AT278 compared to the 2 treatment options that patients have today, and we'll be looking to demonstrate the superiority of this product. So I'm just going to round off with really a kind of view of some of the highlights from 2022 and what we've got to look forward to in 2023, and then I'll hand over to Susan to talk a little bit around the financials. So again, in 2022, we had a very successful year for Arecor. We reported out on those the 3-day insulin pump study results for AT247. We gained clinical trials approval for the current clinical study for AT278, which is now in type 2 diabetics, which is now initiated. We continue to see this technology partnering growth. So this is where we partner with pharmaceutical companies on their proprietary products, and also that continued progress of our partners for those programs that are already licensed to them. And as I mentioned, we acquired Tetris Pharma back in August of last year, and that was really for a combination of their lead product, Gluo, which is a treatment for severe hypoglycemia with people with diabetes, and a 100 million market opportunity in the UK and Europe. And we've seen that successful integration of Tetris Pharma, and also the rollout of that product with launches in the UK and Germany. So looking forward to this year, we've already achieved that second license milestone with Hikma Pharmaceuticals for AT307. So that's the ready-to-use hospital-based medicine, and now they're fully responsible for the development and commercialization of that product. So we'll be looking forward to working closely with them and seeing that product get closer to market through this year. We have the results for the AT278 clinical study, which we'll be expecting to report in Q4 of 23. And we'd expect this year to start to see that significant revenue growth, both from royalties from AT220 following the expected launch later this year. We'd expect to see the build of revenues from the sales of Gluo under Tetris Pharma. And again, this products, the rollout is continuing to be successful across Europe. We launched in Austria in January of this year. And again, we'd expect to see this continued expansion of our portfolio of revenue generating partnership deals, both those existing licenses and seeing those progress through next milestones, but also a conversion of some of those pre-license opportunities as well, with that significant upside from milestone and royalty-bearing licenses. So I'm just going to hand it over to Susan just to talk through the financials.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon, everyone. Our financial highlights for 2022 show that we continue to make good progress as we focused on the strategy that we set out at our IPO in June 2021. H1 2022 total income of 1.1 million increased over the prior period ending June 2021, as both revenue and our grant income increased over the 21 levels. Our investment in R&D increased as we expected, which reflected those clinical costs for AT247 and AT278. And then post the period end in H2, we actually acquired Tetris Pharma in August 2022, and that was on a share-for-share exchange. We also raised 6 million of working capital from our existing shareholders. Our year-end closing cash was 12.8 million, and we're on track to release our full financial year 2022 results on the 20th of April. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. It's not moving. Okay, so that concludes the presentation element of today, but we'd be very happy to answer any questions that anybody has today.
I'm pleased to say there are questions. So I'll put my video on. Here I am. Okay, we'll start at the top. Tim Grattan, what is the total market value approximately for dry powders for reconstitution? And what percentage of these do you think might benefit from aerostat technology into ready-to-use products?
Great, no, that's a good question. So, so these are split up into probably different market segments here. So the specialty hospital segment, where we're selecting products that are within the hospital setting, that are existing medicines and already on the market. So the products that Arecor is working on currently have on-market values ranging from, I'm going to talk in US dollars now, so apologies for that, ranging from a couple of $100 million US dollars up to just north of $1 billion US dollars for each individual product. So it gives you a sense of the kind of size of the market per product for those specialty hospital. But there are a huge number of those. So you're talking in the greater than sort of $10 billion market opportunity there at a minimum for the products that we would consider are applicable to the aerostat technology, and also that we would consider to have commercial value in the marketplace. But then on top of that, we also are finding that as our pharmaceutical partners are developing more novel format biological products, so that next generation of biologicals, many of those are quite unstable, and they're having to go back to lyophilizing those, so generating dry powders for those products that require reconstitution. So we're seeing very much a pull from our pharmaceutical partners for those novel therapeutics that they've got in development, and to develop stable liquid versions of those, because they really don't want to go back into having these products that require significant handling at point of care. And there you're looking, I mean, the biologics market itself is, you know, approximately around $270 billion currently. So it would be a subsection of that.
Thank you. Toffee Man, how long is your cash runway, and will you need to raise again, or will 2023 product launch mean you move to a cash generative position?
Shall I start this, Susan, and then hand over to you? Yeah, so I mean, in terms of our cash runway and what we're looking to achieve, so when we IPO'd back in 2021, we raised 20 million of an oversubscribed round there, and that was really to support the clinical development of our lead insulin products, AT247 and AT278, and also the development of our specialty hospital franchise. I note on the specialty hospital products there, we can follow in a further abbreviated pathway. So the assumption is that no clinical data is required for approval. And that remains our strategy there, that we have the funds available to conduct those clinical studies as you've seen today. And as you mentioned, we then have product launches in 2023 with AT220, which will generate royalty revenue. Now, the extent of that royalty revenue is very much in our partners' hands there, depending on how successful they are and how quickly they can build up those sales, but they're operating in a multi-billion-dollar market. And then we have our other licenses through Inhibrx, Hikma as well, and those pre-license collaborations that have that opportunity to generate that significant license upside. So I think for us, we see it very much as we have a de-risked portfolio here with multiple opportunities for revenue generation, including the Tetris Pharma as well, and the rollout of that product. So, you know, we have that opportunity to move forward and get to those value-driving milestones with our current cash runway. Susan, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I can add to that. Thank you, Sarah. In our working capital, we model effectively our full R&D spend and receivables only from our existing contracts. And as you've heard today, we continue to target and announce new deals, and those are an upside to that working capital modelling. And so our cash runway, as Sarah has said, takes us to the value inflection points that we set out at our IPO, and also potential deal points for our specialty hospital portfolio.
Rightio. Thank you. Tim Gresson asks, why do you need two fast-acting diabetes products, AT247 and AT278? Could you use the more concentrated AT278 instead of AT278 for all clinical applications?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And really the two products, so for AT247, this is a product that's at 100 units per mil, and it's an ultra rapid acting insulin. So we see that really as a product for people generally with type 1 diabetes there, where they need those faster acting insulins, and particularly to feed into those artificial pancreas systems. The reason in many cases you wouldn't then use a very concentrated rapid acting insulin for those patients is that they tend to require much lower daily doses of insulin. So in fact, a more concentrated insulin could become quite difficult to dose with the right amount of accuracy, because you'd be dosing very, very small volumes of insulin. So we see AT247 very much as a insulin for type 1 diabetics, particularly for use in insulin pump therapy. And then the converse of that with AT278 was this real unmet need actually for people with diabetes who require these high daily doses. As we talked about, there's not really a good all-round option for them. They can have concentrated but compromise on blood glucose control, or they can have the tight blood glucose control but have those higher injection volumes and multiple injections multiple times a day, which really increases the burden of the disease. So AT278 very much for those high insulin users, and that tends to be not in its entirety, but it tends to be the majority of those patients with that need are type 2 diabetics.
There is a follow-on to that question, which is faster, AT247 or AT278? Is there any trade-off when using the more concentrated AT278? Is it more viscous and hence slower acting than AT247?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, which we don't have the definitive answer to, because we haven't compared in a clinical study AT247 and AT278. I mean, what I would say is that for AT278, as you said, at those higher concentrations, you tend to see that it slows down the time action profile, and that's the issue with existing concentrated insulins available today. So, the AT278 clinical results did very much hit the high end of our expectations there, that it was more rapid in that first 60 minutes post-injection compared to gold standard rapid acting insulins today. But we don't have a head-to-head comparison of AT247 and AT278 at this time to be able to directly compare those profiles.
Here's a question from Robin Goodfellow. For AT247 and 278, how long to get to market? What steps and what risks?
Yeah, so for both of these programs, they will follow in the US, and then it's very similar in Europe, sort of biological license applications. So there is a number of clinical studies that we need to perform, as I said, mostly to demonstrate here the superiority of these products. So really demonstrating to patients and those prescribers that these products meet those patient needs. But there are, of course, studies that we need to do to align with those regulatory requirements there. So we would anticipate that there would be a small phase 2 clinical study, followed by, again, small, we're not looking at the traditional thousands of patient studies here, phase 3 clinical studies for approval for these products. And that would be a broad approval for type 1 and type 2 patients. In terms of time frame, again, these are relatively short studies. Here, as you can see from our current study for AT278, we initiated this study in January, and we expect to read out the headline results later this year. So they're not really long studies as you would see in an oncology indication, for example. So following this development pathway, we'd anticipate being able to be on market if everything goes well in this 25-26 timeframe. And obviously there we'd be looking for a partner as well for that ultimate commercialization of the products. In terms of risk, you know, the PK/PD data is quite clear from the clinical studies that we've conducted to date, and we wouldn't expect to see that change in larger patient populations. So for AT247, we've conducted those 2 clinical studies in type 1 diabetics. For AT278, the next clinical data will be key because that's in the type 2 patient population. It'll be the first time we've dosed the product in the type 2 patient population. But again, we're taking existing insulin here, and the safety and effectiveness of insulin is known, and that's where most products fail in development. It fails generally because the product isn't effective enough, or it isn't safe. In our case, we're looking at how can we layer on an additional level of superiority that improves outcomes for patients. So it's really around how superior are the products, and does that meet then the needs of the patient so you can gain market share. It's more of a commercial risk than a product development risk for these products.
Neil Ferris has the same question very much in our mind when he asks, all things being equal, when would you hope to launch your products in the market?
Yeah, so I think you know, that would be in that time frame, following those abbreviated pathways to market. You can, you know, and with a partner for commercialization, there you'd be looking in that sort of 25-26 time frame.
Tim Grassen also asks, would it be worth reformulating Opgluo glucagon using Arestat technology, or is it already an optimized formulation?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question actually, but it is actually, even though it wasn't enabled by the Arestat technology, it is a very good product here. So this is a ready-to-use glucagon, also in a very easy to use auto-injector pen. So you place the pen on the skin, press the button on the top of the pen, and that administers the glucagon, which is really important because this is for use in severe hypoglycemia, which is a very stressful event. And one of the definitions of severe hypoglycemia is that the patient themselves is unable to treat themselves. So this requires a third party user, could be a school teacher, that's required to administer the glucagon. So for us, our focus with the Gluo is very much the rollout of the product across the UK and Europe. Again, it's a patient population we know well, and KOLs, so key opinion leaders, endocrinologists, and prescribers who we know very well as well. So really there's you know, a number of synergies between Arecor and Tetris Pharma here, and that's part of the rationale for that acquisition.
Philip Tubart asks this, for a biosimilar like AT220, are you limited to working with one partner in the market for the Humira biosimilar? That's quite a...
I'll answer the question, it's fine. Yeah, so we haven't actually disclosed what the product is, AT220, because that's under confidentiality with that partner. It is a biosimilar product, so we've been able to use the Arestat technology to bring some improvements to the table and help them gain market share. What we can say is it's a product that the existing product that's on the market today is a multi-billion-dollar product, so we'll be looking to our partner there to gain market share, and certainly the improvements that the Arestat technology has brought to the table will help them in gaining that market share against competitors, because the biosimilar space is a highly competitive space. But the second part of that question, when we do license our technology to a biosimilar partner, they are exclusive for those products, because it's important for us that our partner is committed and motivated to taking the Arestat version of the product forward onto the market. And it's also important to them that the same technology can't be used for the same product to enable a competitor. So, it's mutually beneficial for these to be exclusive partnerships.
And Toffeeman asks, Unilever's investment is worth about £7 million, which is peripheral to them, to say the least. But were they to dump their stock, it could hold back the share price. Is there a strategy of getting their shares into safer hands?
Susan, do you want to answer that?
Yes, I can answer that. Yes, Unilever are our second largest shareholder, and they were a founding shareholder and supported the company for many years. I think it's a good question in terms of their shareholding, because it is significant, but they remain a strong shareholder and have not given any indication of their intention to change that.
Thank you. One question I do would very much like to ask. You mentioned administration of medicines out of hospital or in the home environment. How much does that figure in your the strategies for your company?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, across the board, we're looking at opportunities to improve and simplify patient care. So we're looking at improving outcomes there. So if we look at our diabetes products, we're looking at helping people better manage blood glucose to improve their outcomes, but also simplifying care. So there we're looking at, next generation miniaturization of devices, artificial pancreas, to really try and reduce that burden from the patients. And then, we find within our partnered space, so when partners are coming to us with their proprietary products which are in development, that's very much at the forefront of their thinking. There is how is this going to be used at point of care, and how can we simplify this both for the caregivers but also for the patients themselves, and certainly trying to keep patients out of the hospital setting, which comes with lots of challenge. It's not just the cost of that patient being within the hospital setting, there's risk as well with them being there. There really is a drive to try and keep them away from the hospital as much as possible. So this, IV infusion to a single injection that could either be done at the doctor's surgery or in some therapeutic areas, it depends on the disease, of course, at home by the patient themselves. So it's very much, central really to Arecor strategy and our partners' strategy as well.
And in the last year, what achievement would you say you were most proud of? An achievement by Arecor or by yourself, or both?
Yeah, I mean, I think really for Arecor, again, over the last, 2 years, and I think moving forward as well, we've really seen the company advance significantly. I think going from a company that partners with pharmaceutical partners, because that's where we started, just purely partnering with pharma on their products, to now growing out a fully integrated development organization. We have clinical development, regulatory, manufacturing, of course, which is outsourced, but you still have to manage all of that, and conducting 3 very successful clinical studies, is a significant achievement for the company. And we're still, doing that without growing into, hundreds of people at this stage. So we're very focused, I think, but also have some fantastic scientists and development professionals that are really pushing the business forward.
Thank you. And one question, how much of your income is coming from sale of existing products by Tetris as a share of your total income?
Susan, do you want to cover that?
Yes, I can cover that. We'll be announcing our results in April this year, on the 20th of April for the financial year 2022. So we can certainly report that then. What I would say is that the Tetris Pharma results will be consolidated as part of our group reporting, and that will be for the 5-month period from August to December 2022. So it will be a part year that we'll be reporting in financial year 22, and we'll be reporting that in April.
Right. Thank you. We seem to have run out of questions now. I have to say, you've answered. I had a long list of questions to ask, and the delegates and yourselves have done a grand job of answering them already. So I don't know if you have anything you'd like to finish with.
No, I mean, I think it's, thank you to everyone for joining today. And, as Susan mentioned, we have our results on the 20th of April. So if you're able to, please do join us for the results presentation as well. And I think looking forward into 2023, it's another pivotal year for Arecor, seeing products on the market with technology, additional clinical data, and we have a really healthy pipeline of opportunities with pharmaceutical partners that we're exploring at the moment. So I think you'll hear from us again quite soon.
Jolly good. Thank you very much.